Welcome to episode 152 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined live from the Vault Studio on the beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who is ready to board a plane this afternoon, John Scott Sloat.
Feel rushed this morning, Matt. Feel rushed.
Yeah, it's a little different vibe for us. So normally we record on Monday afternoons, but you're a mover and a shaker. You've got people to see, places to go, money to raise, hands to shake. I mean, so we had to get in the studio early this morning.
Yeah.
Earlier than normal.
This is not 10 a.m.
It's like 9:45 as we're recording this. So,
But I'm feeling it. I got to hit the road at about noon. Got a lunch to get to still, and yeah.
But this is your wheelhouse. I mean, this is
This is normal now.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'll fly from Indy to Greensboro and then drive a couple hours and stay the night at a lovely hotel for 2 days.
Okay. All right.
See some folks.
Yeah. So, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. Had delicious turkey, had good sides, and some excellent pie. So probably the addition of the World Cup was a benefit to the Thanksgiving. We did that instead of watching the parade mostly. So.
Okay. But you didn't watch that instead of the afternoon football game?
Well, no, the games finish up at about 2, so we watched football in the afternoon.
Okay. Yeah. We'll talk a little World Cup here in a minute, but yeah, that was it's an interesting dynamic to have that around Thanksgiving, which is unusual. I mean, normally it's a summer event, so it feels weird.
Feels weird, but good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And I throwing out tidbits about human rights violations there in they're in Qatar or Qatar or Qatar or however it's pronounced.
Yeah.
So.
Do we really know how it's pronounced? I feel like I've heard it so many different ways.
From like professional media people, like 3 or 4 different ways. Yeah. I have no idea. No clue.
I feel like I hear either Qatar or Qatar. Those are the 2 leading ones that I hear.
Yeah, those are in the clubhouse for sure.
Yeah. So, all right. If you would like to contact the show, you can reach us on Twitter at VNSPod. You can email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. And we will once again reiterate our request for a 5-star rating and a review.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well, John.
Want to talk some sports?
Let's talk some sports.
Do you want to go first?
I feel
I should. Start low and go high?
I feel I should.
Okay.
I feel I should. There is no other way to say it other than there are, but my preferred way of saying it is Ohio State got outplayed and dramatically outcoached.
Yep.
Dramatically outcoached. And so as a result, lost 45-23. And even though Ohio State led at the half, I could tell we were in some trouble because we had not taken advantage of early opportunities where we could have jumped up 21-3 and made that a very different ball game. But at the end of the day, there is simply no excuse for your $2 million a year defensive coordinator calling a game where you end up allowing 5 touchdowns of over 40 yards, 35 or 40 yards.
Oh, yeah. They were huge, and they were over the top, and they made those DBs look silly.
Yes, that might be the worst performance by an Ohio State secondary I may have ever seen. And that includes the getting torched in the national championship game against Alabama in 2020.
Well, even on the play, even the long run, that team, that M word had.
Which one, John?
Yeah. Well, they just didn't have a safety over the top to be like the second level. Everybody hit the offensive line and a hole emerged, and he just went right to the end zone.
Yep, terrible coaching in terms of scheme, and the first touchdown that the team up north scored was one of those where you're like, okay, you went cover 0, you blitzed, the corner's got to make the tackle. He was in position. He missed the tackle. Mm-hmm. So I don't blame that on scheme. I don't blame that one on scheme. But 2 of those long touchdown passes, there was not an Ohio State defender within 20 yards of a guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that's a coaching thing.
Oh yeah,
that's an absolute coaching thing. It's embarrassing, quite frankly. So sadly, this is the scary part. Ryan Day is on the path to becoming John Cooper.
Yeah, I saw you tweet that after the game, and he's on that trajectory for sure.
Yes.
Because John Cooper started coaching 88? Coached for 12 years, right? Ended in 2000?
Yeah, it's somewhere around there. 88, 89, somewhere around there.
And he went 2-10?
I think he went 2-10-1 against Michigan.
Okay.
I think he coached 13 years actually. So yeah, it's
and he was had a good regular season.
Oh, he was an off the charts recruiter. Mm-hmm. We always had more talent than Michigan, and I'd say in the 90s, probably 8 of those 12 games, we were the significantly better team on paper and lost. So I don't think that's the case here. I wouldn't say we were significantly better on paper. We do have more talent than Michigan. But the cold, hard reality is that Ryan Day is consistently getting outcoached in games where the coaching matters.
Sure.
Ohio State has so much talent that in almost all their games, they have so much more talent that it doesn't matter oftentimes. But when they play a team where there's comparable talent, Ryan Day has struggled in coaching in terms of play calling, in terms of just getting his teams ready. He's won one big game in his career where he's played a team with comparable talent, and that was in the 2020 college football playoff against Clemson, the revenge game.
Yep.
So, I'm not on the fire Ryan Day bus.
How many more seasons like this? Because, I mean, they were a top 10 team all year, probably still are a top 10 team.
Top 5 all year.
Yeah.
And honestly, they might still be 5 is my guess in the college football playoff rankings.
So how many years of we're going to the tournament and then losing to Michigan or having a poor showing against Michigan can Ohio State fans and tolerate?
Well, I think he's probably got
2 more? 3 more?
Yeah, I think if he loses 2 more times to Michigan in a row, that's going to be it. But here's my cautionary tale. You don't want to become Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nebraska was a dominant team in the 90s, nationally relevant. Then Tom Osborne retired, and then they hired a guy named Frank Solich, who was going 10-2, and the fan base wasn't happy, so they fired him. And they've been a dumpster fire for 15 years.
Yeah.
And, it's easy for people to think, that can never happen at Ohio State. Well, Alabama was terrible for a decade before Nick Saban.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible. And so if you lose sight of those realities where it's like, just fire this guy and get some – who are you going to get? The only guy that I would have been like, maybe he's worth going after to replace Ryan Day is Luke Fickell. And he just took the job at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's it. I have no other name that I'm like, go get him.
Yeah.
I don't know who you're going to get. That you're like, he's going to be an upgrade. Ryan Day just has to get better.
Yeah.
He has to do something differently inside that building. And so next year's Michigan game will no question be the biggest game of his coaching career.
And it's at the Big House, right?
And it will be in Michigan. Yep. So we'll see. Quickly, college football playoff stuff. Championship weekend coming up this weekend in terms of conference championships. The crazy thing is, I'm not saying I want this. I'm not saying they deserve this. But Ohio State still has a chance to get into the
even
playoff.
Getting blown out the way they did?
I think we'll find out when the ratings release if Ohio State is ranked 5th. I think they have a chance because Georgia and Michigan are locks. And I think TCU is pretty much a lock as well. Those are undefeated teams. Even if they lose in their conference championship games, I think they're all in.
Okay.
That leaves the 4th spot. If USC wins the Pac-12 championship, they're in. Guaranteed. But if they lose, and that's a losable game for them, then you have this conversation because USC would have 2 losses then.
Oregon, is that who they have?
They have Utah, I believe.
Utah.
Who already beat them once this year. So then you're going to have a conversation of, well, do you take a 1-loss Ohio State team and in that 4th spot? Some people are actually going to clamor for a 2-loss Bama team, which is ridiculous. That would only be on name and reputation. Only. That's it. But I don't know who else you put in there then if USC loses. Like it's just after those top 3, it's a mess. Unless USC wins and then they're a lock. Then they're in.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But if we're going to play like that, it's one of those things where I know this sounds crazy. I'm not sure. I don't really think I want us in the playoff. Do I want us to go and get embarrassed by Georgia? Because Georgia's the better version of Michigan.
Yeah.
Are we really going to fix everything in 4 weeks if we couldn't fix it all year? I'm not confident.
Yeah.
So anyway, enough on that. Your Jets.
Yeah, now we go to the positives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you watch the game yesterday?
I watched most of it, and then once the Jets got a pretty significant lead, I flipped over to watch Titans-Bengals.
Okay. Well, the big news was that they came out this week and announced that Mike White was going to be the starting quarterback, and they were downgrading Zach Wilson from the first quarterback to 3rd string, and he didn't even suit up.
Yeah, he was inactive.
Yeah. And if you looked at the sidelines, there is Mike White looking at film with his quarterback's coach. Joe Flacco is right next to him. Chris Shevler, our practice squad quarterback, is next to him.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson is all the way at the other end of the bench.
Yeah.
Not a good look.
Nope.
Not a good look for the Mormon. But Mike White looked really good.
Yeah. Just throw the ball to Garrett Wilson. My goodness.
He threw the ball to Garrett Wilson a bunch. I mean, Garrett Wilson had 8 targets, 5 receptions, 95 yards.
2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns.
He's really good.
Yes. He's been really good. Elijah Moore also had 2 catches and a touchdown. Did you see his post-game comments? This is the stuff that is wonderful for documentaries if we ever get to that point. Like, we have to do something significant. But he said after the postgame, I was talking to it, the ball, yesterday. And I was saying, baby, 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 I want you, I want you, I want you. And she was saying, just be patient, just be patient, just be patient. It was something along those lines. That's not a direct quote, but it was something like that, where he's talking to the football like it's his girlfriend or wife.
Yeah.
It was a great game. Defense turned it on, probably second quarter forward. And
now, in fairness, the Bears did not have their usual starter, Justin Fields, who was out with the shoulder. Now, I don't think that would have mattered. I think they still would have beaten the Bears.
I think the Bears would have probably put up a few more points. Yeah. But we played really well. Okay. So it was very encouraging.
So 7-4 now? Is that
7-4, yeah.
Okay. And before the year, did you pick 7-10, 8-9?
8-9.
Okay.
That's what I had.
Okay.
Still a possibility, I suppose. But yeah, now we're looking.
If that happens, it would be the most disappointing 8-9 season you've ever seen. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at the playoffs. We had another guy. This is also the stuff that documentaries are made of. We had a running back come in off the practice squad, Zonovan Knight.
Okay.
His nickname is Bam.
All right.
So the announcers were like, Bam Knight for 9 yards. I mean, that's a great name.
Yeah.
The team played really well yesterday. It seemed like everything was clicking. We got the Vikings on Sunday. So looking forward to that game. That should be a good measuring stick to see where we're at.
The Vikings are very good this year.
maybe 8-2, 7-3,
Yeah, somewhere around
8-4,
there,
something like that.
Yeah. Yes. World Cup. Have you been watching?
I watched the United States game against England. That's probably
Okay.
the only full game I've really paid attention to.
Okay. I had a little text exchange with our British friend,
Which one?
Ben in the UK.
Ben in the UK?
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll go there.
What did he say?
He referred to it as rubbish soccer
From the United States or from
England.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's the general consensus is
Yeah.
that England did not play to their potential
Yeah.
for being the fifth best team in the world by pre-rankings.
Again, I don't know a lot about soccer other than the basics.
Mm-hmm.
But in watching that game, the U.S. looked much more like the aggressor.
Yep.
They were attacking more.
Particularly in the second half, I'd
England
say.
just did not look like either they were fully engaged in the game or were that interested, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I get it in one sense. It's group stage, which drives me crazy that, you play for 90-plus minutes and then it's like, let's just stop. You have 0, we have 0. Let's just stop.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So by the time this drops, we'll know. But the U.S. plays Iran today as we're recording, so yesterday when this drops. And basically they beat Iran and they're in.
They're into the knockout round is
Yeah.
what they call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be very exciting for United States
That'd
soccer.
be a big step. Big step.
Particularly if we could hang like a 3-4 nothing on them like England did.
But did you see this? I think the men's soccer team on social media or something, they posted a graphic in support of the protesters in Iran.
The Iranian soccer team or the United?
American soccer team
Okay.
posted something in support of the Iranian protesters,
Sure.
which was basically some sort of modification of the Iranian flag.
Oh.
And so, this has, of course, caused outrage. Now, again, who knows if that means anything. But maybe a little bit more juice on that matchup when it comes to that today. So we will see. It'll be interesting. I enjoy watching it, even though I really don't know a lot about – I have a general sense of what teams are better than others. But, yeah. So let's see. Yeah, NBA I've not really watched much NBA. And then college basketball, I just will note Purdue is off to a very good start. They smacked Duke, and they beat Gonzaga before that. So they're looking very strong so far this year.
That'll be fun locally to see Purdue play well.
Yeah, for sure. But again, I don't tend to start paying attention to college basketball until after Christmas for the most part. Now, there are some high-profile games. Like this week is the Big Ten ACC Challenge, and Ohio State plays Duke at Cameron Indoor. So
that'll be fun.
I think that's Wednesday night. We'll see how Ohio State responds to that. I'm not terribly optimistic there. But anyway, we should probably move on, don't you think?
Yep, I think so.
So today we are talking what we're reading.
Coming into the break.
Yeah.
Coming into the holidays
Yeah, so we thought maybe this would be helpful if you're looking for some book recommendations or some gift ideas potentially for.
Well, and we like
year.
to do this a couple times a year usually.
Yeah.
Just sort of an update on like, what's got our attention right now. And
So either what we're currently reading or what we've recently read or maybe what we're about to read. So it's kind of a broad category.
And I don't know about you, but the holidays usually provide a little extra time to read. For me, there's usually a vacation in there. There's usually extended time at home.
Yeah.
And that provides more time to read. So, yeah.
Okay. So but before we get into that.
Yeah, something you all should read.
We have breaking news. We haven't broken out the breaking news jingle, but we need to, right?
Oh yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. We published a book.
We did.
You and I.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
John Sloat, Matt Harmon published a book. Yes.
Yeah, that feels weird to say out loud.
Yeah. We've talked about this. I think we mentioned it maybe, but the Gospel Coalition website is putting together a series of free online commentaries, and we have contributed the 2 Peter commentary for that. And it is now up and live.
Yep. We got the email over the weekend, right?
Yeah, you can click on the link. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yep.
And you can access it there.
And I think you could do side by side with like the ESV Bible maybe on there and something like that. Yes.
So it is a streamlined version of my commentary in the ESV Expositors commentary. And so that is now available. And we are working on the Galatians one for that as well. So that will, Lord willing, show up somewhat soon as well. The holdup is definitely on 100% on my end on that. So.
Yes, but 2 Peter is live and in the world. And
yes.
Yep. I read the first few sentences and just said, nope, can't do this. It's kind of like listening to the podcast. So.
Okay. So, go read that. And it's free.
Yep.
Free. Doesn't cost you a dime.
100% free.
There you go. All right. So, John, let's talk. We'll kind of go back and forth. How's that sound in terms of
that sounds good to me.
What we're either reading, recently read, or looking forward to reading over the break here. So go ahead. Why don't you start us off?
So I've mentioned this book before on the pod, and I've been reading it mostly when I travel, but I'm hoping to finish it over the holiday break coming up. A Gentleman in Moscow.
Yeah.
I've definitely mentioned this on pod before, and you said you were going to get a copy. Have you gotten a copy yet?
I have not yet tracked it down.
Okay. A Gentleman in Moscow by Armour Towles? Tolles? I'm not totally sure
how
do you
spell
pronounced.
that last name?
Towels.
That sure looks like towels.
Okay.
Armour Towles.
Armour Towles.
What a name.
Yeah.
Though, let's be honest. If your last name is Towles, what can you put with that as a first name that's probably not going to, lead to the kid getting picked on at some point?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. But A Gentleman in Moscow, I think I've kind of gone over the plot before, right? But this sort of high society Russian elite, basically. The Russian Revolution happens. He gets put on trial in Moscow. And because he has written this lovely poem, he is thrown into house arrest at a hotel for the remainder of his life.
Okay.
And so it's his life living in this hotel as sort of the Russian Revolution, which went on for 20, 25 years, goes on around him and sort of his view of the thing from this sort of like interesting seat inside this hotel. And he doesn't leave the hotel the whole book, at least yet in my reading.
Okay.
So it's about his little adventures inside this hotel.
All right. So I'm going to go with a book that I recently read. My friend Ben Glad wrote a book called From the Manger to the Throne, A Theology of Luke. It's part of the Crossway New Testament Theology series, and would highly recommend that. He traces out several key themes in Luke. It's very readable. It's very accessible. This is not the primary audience is not academic, though it certainly is readable from an academic perspective. But even if you're not a big reader, if you just want to understand the gospel according to Luke, and you might even find it helpful if you're going to preach out of Luke during the Advent series or Advent season here. There's some good stuff in there on that. And on a side note, I will mention in passing, Ben and I do a podcast together called the Biblical Theology Briefing.
How large is that book?
It's less than 200 pages.
Okay, so it's a manageable
book. Yeah. And part of what makes that book so good is Ben pays very close attention to Old Testament allusions and echoes that inform how you understand that passage and sheds some really helpful light on passages that you may not have fully appreciated before, fully seen. So highly recommend that. That's Ben Glad, From the Manger to the Throne, A Theology of Luke.
Nice.
And you can Ben and I actually discussed this book in our most recent episode of the Biblical Theology Briefing podcast that launched early in November. So you can go check that out as well. Deep dive on that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I need to get into that series. I have not picked
terrific.
up a book from that series yet, but there's a few. Patrick Schreiner has one in that series.
Patrick Schreiner on Acts, Tom Schreiner on Revelation.
Okay.
Ben Merkel on Ephesians, and now Ben Glad on Luke, and then mine will be the next one out on the volume on Mark will come out in January, and I think mine will come out in February on 2 Peter. So
Nice. So that's off to the publisher for you.
Oh, it's been to the publisher for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I even filmed some promotional video stuff at ETS for that. So
nice.
You might see some of that on social media coming up in end of January, beginning of
How
February.
do you do seeing your face on like promotional material for your own books?
I mean, I'm not crazy about it, but I don't have the same adverse reaction that
Like
you
you'll
do.
watch it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So interesting.
It's the only way to get better, John. Only way to get better. I'm a man committed to improvement.
Yeah.
So, all right, what's your next book?
Fabric of This World by Lee Hardy. You familiar with this?
I'm not.
So this is sort of a historical look at vocation and work. So he does a good job of going through different views of work, from like how the Greeks and Romans viewed work to how the medieval church viewed work to how Marx viewed work to how Freud viewed work. It sort of does an analysis of each of those, 5-10 pages, not long, and then kind of does a deep dive on the Reformed view of work. And I'm just getting into how Luther viewed work, how Calvin viewed work, and how they saw that fitting into life and vocation. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's one of my vocations. Sort of one of those things I've enjoyed reading about, and I oversee a grant for our university, so I try to stay up to date
Current.
on those things. Yeah, and vocation is one of those things where it's like, what's your purpose? What's this? And it can be so inundated with people who just like, well, I feel this and this is my purpose now.
Yeah.
And I really love reading the Reformers and how they bring sort of that idea of purpose to the forefront of what sits at the center of that is love of neighbor. And I find that really helpful as a framing device for discussion of purpose, discussion of vocation.
Yeah, I think this is one of the areas where I think a liberal arts institution like Grace College can be distinctive in terms of the goal of going to college is not just get the necessary credentialing and skills so you can get a job on the other end.
Yeah.
That is an important part. We're not denying that should be an important piece. But for us as believers, rooting that in a much larger context of understanding who God has made us to be, what his purposes in the world are, and even how we are to use our gifts and abilities in the broadest sense, in a sense of calling. What has God called us to? Not in a subjective sense of I just have this sort of warm, fuzzy feeling that I want to do this, but a more holistic, let's have other people speak into your life. Let's look at gifts, abilities, and frame that theologically within the scope of who God is, what he's doing in the world is some place that a school like Grace, I think, can contribute to that conversation
Absolutely.
in a distinctive way. All right, my next one is a book I've been looking forward to. I picked up a copy at ETS. I've read a little into it. 5 Views of Christ in the Old Testament, obviously one of my areas of specialty.
Oh yeah, and that's is that a reprint or or they have a similar book of a similar topic, right?
It's essentially a replacement.
Is it really?
Yeah, the previous volume was weak.
Because did you have us read that in class?
Unfortunately, I made that mistake, yes. It's just not very good. Like it was a 3 views when I'm like, okay, well, none of these views really captures where I'm at.
Yeah.
At least in this 5 views, there's one view, one essay that I'm like, that gets where I'm at. It's by Jason DeRushi at Midwestern. So
Nice.
So I'm very much looking forward to that. I've read a little bit into it so far.
Who are the other contributors? I know it's off the top of your head, but
John Goldengay,
okay.
Tremper Longman.
Okay. The third?
Yes. There's a female Indian scholar whose name I cannot remember, and even if I could, I probably could not pronounce it properly.
Okay.
Jason DeRushi and Craig Carter is the last one there. So very, very interesting. So far, it seems pretty readable. It's not like so deeply technical that a layperson couldn't read it.
Yeah. Sometimes that series, because is that the point and counterpoint series?
It's the counterpoint series, yeah.
So
Sondervan.
Sometimes that one can get a little in the weeds.
Yeah, for sure.
In some essays.
Yep.
All right. Are we on my third one?
Yep.
Okay. A new biography about John Whitcomb has recently been released in the last 6 months.
Okay.
So John Whitcomb, former professor at Grace. Probably more interesting for me is I went to high school with his grandson. Did you know this?
I'm not sure I did. Maybe I did.
Yeah. So
in Pittsburgh?
In Pittsburgh, yeah. So John Whitcomb's son is both a PhD and MD at the University of Pennsylvania. Or excuse me, University of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And so his grandson went to my little Christian school that I was at, and we were, there's only so many people there, so we were friends, and so I do have a bit of a fascination with that biography, and it's written by my friend's dad, so I'm interested in reading that. It's from a tiny little publisher.
Okay.
So
a son writing a biography of his dad.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
So Dave Whitcomb is the author, and it's about his father, John.
Okay.
Who was a professor at Grace for a number of years. So I'm excited to read through that. I think it's coming out in 2 parts, and the first part is out.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I'll just mention my next one quickly. Book by Benjamin Laird, The Pauline Corpus in Early Christianity, Its Formation, Publication, and Circulation. So that's just an area of interest in terms of how do we go from these disparate letters that Paul wrote into a collection of letters that was copied and then distributed to throughout the churches in the first century. What was that process like?
I'm sure that's fascinating. Yeah.
What can we know? What can we reasonably hypothesize about that process? I'm very interested. I picked it up at ETS, kind of skimmed through it and looked and said, I will enjoy this book, I think. So
okay.
That's on the probably read it over Christmas break.
Scholarly end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, a well-read layman can probably work through it, but the audience is more scholarly.
Okay.
So
my last one, and I can do this quickly. I've been reading a Martin Luther biography. So by Herman Selderhuis or Heiss.
I think it's Selderhuis, yeah.
So that's been really good. That's been really enjoyable.
He's just a fascinating human being.
He really is. And what I appreciate is he doesn't shy away from some of Luther's
Well, how do you avoid them if you're going to be even remotely honest about it?
But the introduction talked about his bathroom issues.
Yeah.
And it comes up throughout the book. And a couple things have struck me about this because I'm probably 75% of the way through it. A couple of things have struck me. One, Luther was all about Greek and Hebrew. I mean, all about it. Love to think, love to, argue from it.
Yeah.
The other thing that struck me is how much he blames the devil for things.
Oh, yes.
Like everything is the devil.
Yes.
Like
constipation.
Oh, yeah. Headaches.
Yep.
Bad storms.
Yep.
All these things are Satan.
Yeah.
And and we probably have overcorrected it. That's overcorrected in the other way where nothing, we would never vocalize like, oh, well, this is Satan,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So.
Yes. My last one here is a book by Brian Rosner, How to Find Yourself, Why Looking Inward is Not the Answer. So Crossway, very readable. I've probably read about, 40% of it, but like kind of dipped in and read sections and that sort of thing in use for other things. But I have a sneaking suspicion that this is not the last time we will speak about that book.
Okay. Do you know Rosner?
I do.
Okay.
I do. So
pregnant pauses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see what develops from that in the future. So, spoiler alert: we might do a little bit more with that book in the future. So,
okay.
Ready to move on, John? We probably should.
Sure.
Time for This Day in Sports History.
All right. This Day in Sports History, November 22nd.
Not 29th.
You're right. 29th.
I didn't change the date up there, but the information here is from the 29th. So.
Also, today when this drops is Giving Tuesday.
Yeah.
So we are on a campaign right now to raise $500,000 by the end of the calendar year, and Giving Tuesday kicks that off. So if you would like to make a large donation to Grace, it's grace.edu/give.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This Day in Sports History, November 29th, 2022. 1962, Major League Baseball decides to revert to one All-Star game per year after 4 seasons in which 2 All-Star games were played. I did not know that.
I had no idea that. Like, I don't even.
When?
Yeah. Like, do you break the season up into like thirds then and do it like after the first third?
That's a great question. I have no clue.
That's so bizarre to me.
Interesting. 1966, first NBA game at Oakland Coliseum Arena. Warriors beat the Bulls 108-101.
Okay.
Yeah, Oakland.
They no longer play there. Didn't they tear that down?
Oracle. They played Oracle.
Well, but I thought they built a brand new arena.
Recently?
Yeah, like a couple years ago, I think.
Yeah, it's called Oracle Arena, right?
Right. So I think the
Oakland, original guy,
the original Oakland Coliseum, I think, is no longer in existence.
1970, England cricket batsman Colin Cowdrey.
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Reaches 22 on day 3 of the drawn first test against Australia in Brisbane to become Test cricket's leading run scorer, passes countryman Wally Hammond's world Test record aggregate of 7,249 runs. I just read a sentence. I have no clue what that means.
That's exactly why I put it in there. That, and as a sort of hat tip to our friend Ben in the UK, which I don't know if he's into cricket. I know he's into soccer, but yeah, isn't it fascinating? The part of the reason I put this in here is it's a reminder to us that that's what our sports talk sounds like to some of our audience and why they probably skip it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's another language. It's so yeah.
What is Test crickets?
I have no idea.
Is that a team?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we need some help from our audience on that. Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what we even just said.
And does Colin Cowdrey's record still stand?
It's a fair question. I'm not sure.
All right. Moving on to English or American English.
American English, yes.
1987, Joe Montana of the San Francisco 49ers completes NFL record 22 consecutive passes.
Yeah, that might have been eclipsed by now as well, but that's still impressive.
I imagine so.
Still impressive.
Yeah.
22 passes in a row.
Indeed. Oh,
so,
my.
What do you like out of that, John?
I have no clue. Man, you would think November 29th would have
I was struggling.
an OSU game in there that was
that's pretty late. It's pretty late in the year.
Something from NFL football. I mean, Joe Montana 22 is impressive, but it's not amazing. It's not like went 2 straight games
without an incompletion. Yeah.
I don't really care that the Oakland Coliseum was built.
Yeah. I think we got to go with Colin Cowdrey, even though we have no clue what we're saying.
Sure. I assume those are positive things and not like –
I assume so.
Like if I just added in the word butt fumble or something, it would make just as much sense.
Probably. Okay. One thing you liked.
Since I leave on the road today, I'm going to hype an app that I've been using for my travels called Trip It.
Okay.
Trip It. It has both a app and a online portal. And so what happens is I get flight details. I send it off to Trip It. They have a little email address I send it to. Automatically gets organized for me, and then I can go in and add meetings, things like that with addresses. It all comes up in the app. I can click on them and go right to Google. Very, very handy so I don't miss anything.
Okay. Yeah, that does sound handy.
And 100% free.
Trip It.
Trip It.
Okay.
One word.
All right. So for me, on the flight back from ETS, I watched the documentary Facing Nolan. Have you seen this?
I have not. No.
So it was on the flight, and I did a little looking, and I think it's on Netflix. It was terrific. It was really well done. It's a documentary about Nolan Ryan, and he's come up several times in our sports, this day in sports history, because I think people don't – I think he gets kind of lost in the shuffle sometimes. He was historically great.
Yeah.
He struck out over 5,000 batters in his major league career.
Well, he went out to do a ceremonial first pitch maybe 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I still think he threw the ball upper 80s.
Yeah. And he the documentary does a good job of tracing his career, talking with his family, and kind of tracking his rise. And there's some epic clips on social media or probably YouTube where if you search for Nolan Ryan, Robin Ventura, there's a famous clip of where Robin Ventura charges the mound. And Robin Ventura at that point was probably 12, maybe 15 years younger than Nolan Ryan. Charges the mound after Nolan Ryan threw a little too close to him or hit him. I can't remember.
Little chin music, yeah.
Charges the mound, and Nolan Ryan basically gets him in this hold where he's going to give him a noogie, and is just got him around the neck and is just uppercutting him in the face and beating the snot out of him. And then there's another clip where Nolan Ryan there was a ground ball up the middle. It hit him in the lip, and so it started bleeding. And so he pitched. They would clean it up today. They would go out and have a medical person. But he was he split his bottom lip, and so he's got blood running down his chin all over his jersey, and he just looks like the nastiest, meanest looking dude on the planet. So there's just a lot of good stuff in there. Very much worth watching. It's relatively short. I mean, it's a little over I think it's an hour and 15, hour and 20.
Interesting.
So and the fact that he pitched for your Miracle Mets,
you
will enjoy it. This is right up your alley. So
I have a flight today.
There you go.
I am gonna download it right now.
Facing Nolan on Netflix.
Assuming it's on Netflix.
Yes, I'm pretty sure I looked before the show here. So, all right. We have talked.
Oh, and the cover has him as a Mets player.
There you go. Yes, we have talked football. We have talked what we are reading. We have talked about cricket, which we do not understand. We have talked about an app that Sloat finds helpful.
Very helpful.
And we've talked about a documentary on Nolan Ryan. And so I think by definition, we have covered our various and sundry topics. And so all that's left to say is until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.